Now then, welcome to the channel. The following recording is taken from our latest Be Reyt or Proper Shite Review series episode, starring the UK's top competitive food eater, Beard Meets Food. On this episode we are diving into two classic football movies, Goal and The Damned United. For the full episode, head to your favourite podcast provider and search for The Film Fella and Friends. If you like it, don't forget to follow for more episodes, and whilst you're at it, you might as well like this video and subscribe to the channel. Anyway, that's it from me. Enjoy the show.
The Film Fella.
I mentioned in that little intro, that very, very well scripted intro, that you're a little bit confused. Now, obviously, this theme is because we've got Leeds versus Arsenal coming up this weekend. We're both football fans. We've known each other for a while, and we both like films, funnily enough. But you're a little bit confused. There is a reason why I've picked this particular weekend. So, would you like to explain what's going on, what I'm getting at?
Maybe you're gonna have to tell me. You mean well, the reason we're doing it is because I'm an Arsenal fan.
Yes.
In part, and you're a Leeds United fan.
There we go. That was the bit I was after. I was just after the part bit. So yeah, you've suddenly decided that Leeds might be a bit more interesting now that they're back in the Premier League.
Well, that is a little bit cynical, Film Fella, if you ask me, because I've always, a lot of my family and friends support Leeds United naturally because I am from Leeds. But so I got grief when I was a little younger for supporting Arsenal. But I think I always followed Leeds as kind of like a second team. And this is a film podcast, right? So I don't want to alienate people with the sports detail. But certainly over the last three seasons or so, I've watched probably at least equally as much of Leeds on TV as I have Arsenal, and it's weird for me because now I find myself almost equally invested in each team's performance. So I'm one of those people that people hate because they have two teams that they want to do well, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. It is going to be weird come Sunday though, because I'm not sure I'm going to want to win, and we've only played each other what I can think of maybe 2 or 3 times in recent memory.
In about 10 years, yeah.
FA Cup last season, and more, certainly more, something that sticks out more to me is when Henry came back and scored against Leeds in the cup. But I think now to me 10-all would be great.
It's really entertaining, but but we both get a point. Fair enough. So I just thought we'd sort of explain, like you say, this is a film podcast, so I'm sure people aren't tuning in for that reason. To be honest, at this stage, because it's me, they're probably not even tuning in for that. They're tuning in because you're on this episode. So
I didn't want to say anything, but
yeah, I'm still a little fledgling with this. I'm still trying to find my feet. So I guess we should probably explain what films we've decided. Obviously, I imagine most people can see, if they've clicked on the YouTube video that hopefully goes along with this podcast. They will know what we're talking about. But in case for some reason you've just blindly bashed on it, we're going to be looking at Goal, Living the Dream, which I've got a confession to make soon. And also, obviously, because, Leeds United, we're looking at a true classic in The Damned United, which I've been wanting to do on this channel for quite a while, but I've just not really.
Today's a day.
I've not had the right guests. I'm sure. So Johnny, now he's also a Leeds United fan. Suddenly, may have wanted to do that, but I thought I'll pick you because I know that you definitely know what you're talking about when it comes to football. I think. So shall we jump into it? Especially these two films are very night and day, aren't they? One's very modern depiction, and the other one's a very should we say vintage variety of film.
Vintage is good, yeah.
But we'll jump into it right now then, shall we? So, Goal, Living the Dream. Just before we start, because we had a bit of back and forth. I asked you if you wanted to do this, and you were like, yeah, go on. I remembered because when you were on the Real Now series, you did say that it was a nice change to talk about something that's not related to food. So that was one of the main reasons that I sort of reached out, other than the football thing. And I thought, Goal is this one film that everyone seems to sort of go on about. There's lots of memes to do with the player, the character. You know, we'll get into that. But my one big confession is that I've never actually seen this film until I watched it for this review. Because you were messaging me and you were like, "Oh, you've not seen it either." All right, we were bluffing each other then.
I remember when Goal came out, like, because I remember, like, you know, the old fashioned. I say old fashioned. Nobody's been to the cinema for ages, but like me especially. And you know, you would get the big kind of cardboard things advertising. Yeah. I remember the one for Goal at the Showcase Cinema in Bristol. So I remember it coming out. I just never saw it. And normally, kind of, you know, years later, you would catch it at some point on TV and think, "Oh, I'll just watch it." But I never did. I kind of still wish I never did, but yeah, I watched it to prepare for this.
Yeah. Well, I, you know, we clearly bluffed each other out. Because when we were talking about it, we were like, "Oh, which film should we watch? Which film should we watch? We should definitely do Girl." I thought you'd seen it, but this will make this even more entertaining because this is completely fresh.
Yeah.
I guess in the time-honored tradition of this podcast, normally. It's usually me and High Honey. It's John Wall, and normally on a Be Reyt or Proper Shite episode, I will ask Johnny to give the premise for this. You know, like very precise, very contained. His version. It's usually quite funny. So I'm going to let you do it because you're the guest. So tell if no one has ever seen this before, try to explain in as concise a way possible what this film is about.
Oh, right, okay. I'll give my best shot. Here's my shot at the blurb. So, Goal, Living the Dream is, I think they added that later. I don't think that was in the original title of the film, but it's about a young kid who illegally crosses the border from Mexico into America at a young age with his family. He lives kind of I suppose a relatively impoverished life, and his dad's quite an austere disciplinarian, I suppose, and he doesn't want the main character's head in the clouds because he's dreaming about playing football. His dad wants him to be, I cancan't remember, if he's a mechanic or a builder or something. They want to start their own little gig, but the main character doesn't want that. He wants to go play for he ends up playing for Newcastle United. I was going to say a big team. It's just about his setbacks along the way, and I don't want to spoil the film entirely, but about how that plays out. That was as concise as I can do.
That was pretty good. Normally it's sort of like meanders and weaves. Like Johnny will start off really, really good, and then he'll sort of lose what point he's on, and then when he comes back to it, he sort of then inadvertently gives away like the full thing. Good. I liked that you stopped. We're not professional on this podcast. So,
I'm coming for this guy's job. This Johnny guy, I'm coming for his job. That's it.
I'll tell him. This film came out in 2005. Which the one thing that shocked me more than anything about it is just how old and how sort of kind of dated even 2005 looks. Now, like for whatever reason, in my mind, I'm a 90s child, so I look back at the 90s as only being like 10 years ago, even though obviously it's, nearly we're pushing 30 years. So 2005 is still quite a long time ago, but yet in my mind it's like we're only a couple of years ago, but it's
15 years.
Yeah, 15 years. Quick maths.
Yeah.
So it had a budget of $33 million and a box office, which kind of sort of makes it a success, I think, of 37.6, which kind of shocked me a little bit.
Well, it spawned 2 sequels, right? As far as I'm aware, so it must have been at least, if not critically acclaimed, then at least financially acclaimed.
I haven't watched, obviously, as we mentioned, I haven't watched this one before. I've not watched the other 2 yet. Just going off of IMDb and Letterboxd and just any other review service that you can find on the internet, it just sort of slowly goes off of a cliff and then it just disappears. This one is the critically acclaimed in the series.
Wow.
But yeah, it's an interesting film. Is there any particular? I'll let you go first, because obviously I just compile a ton of notes and I try my best to not waffle my way through them all. Have you got anything that you like? Is anything that stood out that you just really want to talk about, that you watched it and you thought, I need to talk about this?
Where to start? I could talk about so many things in this movie. The funny thing is, the cast, first of all, is not the guy who plays Santiago Muñez, the main character. I have no idea who he is. I think he's like a soap opera actor, right?
I had a look, and he's not been in the right lot other than these films.
Yeah. Not that he wasn't particularly bad in the film or anything like that. But aside from him, the supporting cast is actually not terrible on paper. You know, you've got I forget the guy's name, Tony. He plays Ugly Betty's dad. Not that I watch Ugly Betty, right? I just know that he's
just outing yourself.
He's called Tony something. He's a big character actor. He's been in 24 and a bunch of American drama series. He's good in it. He plays Santiago's dad. You've got Anna Friel, right? Can't complain about that. And Pollux Troy from Face Off. I don't know the actor's name. So like on paper, I wanted to like it. Start the story is it's contrived, right? But you're kind of in it.
Yeah.
And the acting is not poor, right? So you don't go into it thinking this is absolutely diabolical.
You don't. When sometimes when you watch a film like this, if the acting's poor, that is the one thing that you sort of like you're hooked to, and you can't pull yourself away from it, and then it ruins the entire film because the whole film is just you watching the bad acting as opposed to the plot and the story. But you're right. Yeah. This film, even though I know where you're going to end up going with this, but it's not awful. Like it's not so bad that you watch it and you're like, Jesus, this is why. It's not that bad.
No, I was getting there, I think, but the structure of it is, it's not the acting that makes the movie bad. Let's put it that way. For me, anyway, because it's delivered reasonably well. The part, I think, it kind of suffers from the same problem as most football movies, or you could argue sports movies, although there are some good ones. In that, for me, it's like it kind of stumbles between these interconnected kind of action set pieces, right? Which typically, I don't know what it is with football films usually, but they generally revolve around the protagonist, right? He kind of walks past a bunch of people defending like crash dummies, and he pulls off his fancy tricks. The camera will zoom in. He'll score some worldie like that Maradona goal from whatever it was, the 80-something World Cup. And that's essentially every goal, right? So it's a little bit like watching a Superman movie. There's never any threat to the main guy. You know at the end how it's going to be resolved.
Yeah.
Those are so jarring. They take you away from the actual, the kind of struggle of what he's going through, to the point that you kind of think, I'm done with. From the first time you see him play football, you think, yeah, I'm done with this. That's me anyway.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. There isn't like in his life there's a struggle, but his actual ability and everything that revolves around him becoming a Newcastle United player is just very cookie cutter from one bit to the next bit to the next bit, and it just happens for him. There's a couple of very, very minor setbacks, but in the long and short of it, they're not.
No, I think the first point at which the plot really fell. Let's take aside the action, the football scenes. The plot really fell is when Stanis Baratheon, again, I don't know the actor's name, the guy that plays the scout, says, "Oh yeah, on my say so, you've got a trial at Newcastle United. Just get yourself to Newcastle." Imagine saying that to a kid who's got no money. Who you're a complete stranger to. I mean, I wouldn't even go out there, and I wouldn't go down to the St James's Park or whatever it's called now, Sports Direct Arena, for a trial on somebody's say so. And I only live, 2 hours away, not 18 hours away.
Yeah. So. With all your money, yeah. That one bit in that in that section, it's just like he goes back. Why can't he take him back with him? Like I know there is a plot point that we won't delve into as to why he can't specifically go straight away, but he could have done the same thing that he does and just gone with him and just taken him with him. Like, if he believed in him that much,
Yeah,
like,
I think there are. I mean, how long have you got? We could go through a lot of. I think probably the one. It could have been for me like a 2 out of 5 movie, right? It could have been. I could have just been like, it's not great. I wouldn't recommend it, but it's not the worst film I've ever seen. The point at which it probably became a 1 out of 5 stars movie for me was when it pans to LA, and you know what? You probably know what I'm going to say. And there's a bar full of Jordan watching in Newcastle United shirts. Admittedly, watching on Fox Sports or whatever. But they're watching. I mean, I've been to LA, right? I remember trying to watch football when I flew out there for the Gyoza Championship last August, and nobody even people. It's basically on regular TV. Nobody cares about it. So the thought that you would have a bar entirely full of Newcastle United fans wearing Newcastle United shirts, speaking with Geordie accents in the middle of LA, is just that's the it jumps the shark at that point. You're just like, no, I'm not in this anymore. This is just ludicrous.
See, I were a bit more generous with like the rating that I've given it. I'll mention it soon, but like I think it's more because compared to what I was expecting, I enjoyed it more, and I kind of did enjoy it, even though it is ridiculous. But that bar scene, the cameo from Brian Johnson from AC/DC is just, he has like 2 lines, and it's insane. I know he's not meant to be playing Brian Johnson. He's meant to be just playing himself because he's a Newcastle fan in real life. But yeah, it's just very jarring.
It's just I think maybe insane. I'll give it, if we're going to kind of condense it to a star rating, I would probably give it 2 out of 5. But that scene just had me thinking, what were the people that wrote this movie thinking? I mean, most of the people who are going to watch this are going to full well know that would never, ever happen, to the point that it's, it almost takes you entirely out of the film. But apart from that, it does have moments in there that you enjoy. That's quite an emotional finale. I don't want to give it away if anyone's watched it, but there's a I don't mean the thing that happens at the end, but he kind of gets what he's been created. He has a strange relationship with his dad, and he learns that his dad has come to accept what he chose as a career. Let's put it that way. So it's not a throwaway movie, but it's not a good film.
I mean, we would be insane as actual UK British football fans to not mention it. But what did you make of the actual player cameos in this film? I mean, we won't ruin all of them, but there's some very... Do you think if anyone... It's hard because I don't know how many people who will watch or listen to this who will know football enough from that time period to know some of the bigger stars that were in it. But because we've already mentioned Newcastle United, Alan Shearer.
Oh mate, I've got to say, if you want to enjoy it at like a kitsch level, like a tongue-in-cheek level, the cameos, and I get the feeling that's probably a considerable portion of the budget as well. The cameos from the Alan Shearer scene in the gym. Oh my, that had me absolutely rolling. Well, he's on. Never do leg extensions anyway on a machine. Like if you listen to this, just never do that. They have zero utility. But he's on the machine. He's trying to shift, I don't know, like 40 kilos on one leg or something. He can't do it. And then Shearer comes along, gives him a cheeky little wink, and he throws like 200 kilos on for one leg, and he's just repping it out. And you think, oh man, this is terrible, but hilarious at the same time.
I mean, for me personally, they don't have any lines, but they are definitely in the film in the sense of, because it does clips of, I don't know how they've done it. I don't know whether they've got the players to run alongside past, like in like just one scene, they've had someone run past him in a game, or they've sort of very early CGI like imposed the game onto the scene. But there's James Milner, who ex-Leeds United player. You've got Lee Bowyer, who's in the little gaggle with Alan Shearer on the training pitch. I was just, every time I saw like an ex-Leeds player, I was like, ooh, but they've got no lines.
One thing you could say, but how technically astute the film is in some ways, is the way it's filmed, because those are shot. I think when I look at it, I think they're shot. That's a real the playing scenes with the real players. Steven Gerrard's in it at one point. They're shot on a cinema cam, but I guess with a telephoto lens because they're zoomed in to the action. That's just a real game, I think, that they've had a film crew turn up at and shoot. And then you will notice like the parts where, I forget the guy's name, Gavin, the guy that's played by the dude that does Pollock's Troy in Face Off. The other guy, Gavin Harris.
Yeah,
right?
that's it.
Yeah, big signing.
Yeah.
So there's a point where he's playing, and you can tell there's an incongruence there. It's not real, right? But the way it's done is believable. So you could say that for the film, that I've not seen another movie that sports movie that kind of blends them together like that in such a way, which is ambitious, and it works. Yeah,
no, it did. I mean, as much as we bash the film for like its plot and certain aspects of it in terms of like scenes and stuff, the one thing I will say, especially, I'm presuming you've also visited Newcastle at some point in your life. Have you?
I've not been to the stadium. I've been to Newcastle, the city.
I've been to a game. I've been to a Leeds Newcastle game where we equalised last minute. Chris Wood. The away stand, just for anyone that doesn't know, at St James's Park is like up in it's past the clouds. Like you are so far up into the gantry of the whole stadium that you can barely see all. It's just like watching ants. But we scored, and it felt like that was just going to fall off. But what I'm getting at is the ground, the cinematography for the ground for Newcastle in general, even though it's got that kind of visual tone that makes it look like England, wet and dreary and stuff, it's still like really beautifully done. Like if you just saw like B-roll of some of this film that they've used, like bits of the stadium, bits zooming into like players in the, like you've said, when he goes for his run, when he's training at the beach. All those kind of like the cinematography of it is actually really good. Like it's not world beating, but it's good.
But yeah, it's definitely at kind of loggerheads with how poor the film is in terms of plot, etc. The way it's shot is good. You know, you can't say it's not. And like I said, some of the technical, the set pieces and stuff, and the way they're meshed with what is essentially real life playing is it deserves credit for that.
You'll give it that. So I guess before we move on, there's just some other very, very wee bits that I noticed that we'll just sort of quickly fire through, sort of like a speed round before we move on.
Okay.
We mentioned cameos, but this is a super obvious one. But David Beckham is a terrible actor in this day and age. Also, what's going on with his eyebrows?
He's not. In this film, there's some. You said some preening done, but the worst part about that for me is since Goal, he was then in the Guy Ritchie, the King Arthur thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's called King Arthur. And his acting, they've got to be 10 years apart, and his acting has not improved in the first 10 years. You would think it would have done, but David Beckham's is pretty. My favorite, I think, apart from the Shearer thing, I liked Raul and I'm just spoiling him here. Raul and
it's fine.
Zidane, because that's got to be the biggest phone-in job of all time. The paycheck, they just turn up, they don't even really say anything, they just mumble a bit and then walk off with a beer. And you're kind of thinking like,
what?
Why were they? what was that about? But no. But Beckham, that was a bit of an odd one. But I think that was obvious at the time it was going to be him, right?
Yeah, 100%. Like that'll have been in the. I mean, I haven't looked at the trailer, but I imagine something like that will have been in the trailer. It's like, oh, he's in it, and then like, yeah. The line, one tackle away from flipping burgers. I was sort of mid-drink and I nearly spat everywhere. It's just, I mean, it's kind of true, you know. Like
it's good because it is true, yeah.
I mean, in this day and age, some footballers have now got like PhDs and things like that to fall back on. Leeds United's very own Patrick Bamford can speak. Is it like 4 languages? He's got like a degree, and
he is a bit of a standout there. Let's not say Patrick Bamford is he's the
benchmark for all
the norm. Yeah. He's a standout. Love Patrick Bamford, by the way, big fan.
Yeah, it's huge. But yeah, just that line was one of the few lines where I thought I need to write this down. It's perfect.
It's a good line. It's a good line, yeah.
And I guess last of all, the meme that I'd seen thousands of times. It's all over my Twitter timeline, on my personal Twitter, which I predominantly talk about football on, is the full ham,
Oh yeah,
the bit at the very end.
That's the big. You know when we played against Fulham? Yeah, that was.
I was just howling. It's so. I mean,
when I go on.
No, I was just going to say, like, obviously for anyone, if we do end up with anyone that's abroad listening, it's Fulham. I mean, I know we've got Yorkshire accents, probably a bit of infliction there, but it's just Fulham. It's not full ham. It's not like a packet of ham that's full. It's full ham. It's Fulham.
Nobody in England, Scotland, Wales, Ireland, probably even Europe would say full ham. But I suppose that they're trying to. I wonder if that was intentional, in a way, to try and kind of
like spark
something. He's American, he's not from around here, kind of thing. But,
I don't think that it was. I like that, and I will go with that. And I imagine if you mentioned that to anyone that was involved in this film, they'd be like, yeah. But no, I don't think. I think that was exactly how it was meant to be.
One thing, he'd still probably score. I was thinking, watching the film, the first thing, probably about 20 minutes in, I was like, you probably, if you were a Newcastle United fan, you'd probably still take Santiago Munez over Joe Ellington or Miguel Almiron, surely. I mean,
hey, back in this film, in this period, you would probably take him over Alan Shearer, because one of the things I did know is, does Shearer actually score in this film? He's got 148 goals for Newcastle in 283 career appearances. Stat. And it's just, he doesn't have a single bit of footage of him scoring in the entire game.
I think the only footage there is footage of him playing, right? Does he get, I think, on the counter or something? He comes away with the ball.
There's a bit of a 1-2 between him and Munez, but he doesn't score.
Yeah, but you're thinking, though, Shearer at that age, if he takes the ball from the back four, he's getting caught within about 3 seconds. He can't move anywhere. I mean, he's got no pace at that age.
So what you're going with is that it was hyper-realistic for the time.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I think the one thing I was going to mention, which I think probably segues us quite nicely, if you finished on, not that I'm taking over presenting the show,
go for it.
I was going to say the one thing that really, really irritates you about this and a few other football films is the fact that I don't understand why they can't cast people who can play the game, at least to a Sunday league level. That's something that they do achieve in the next one we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, arguably is less of a football film. It's the Damned United, which we're going to talk about, is less of a film about football. The goal relies quite a bit on the action on the pitch.
Yeah.
And the one thing that when the final action, the final goal is scored in the film, let's say, that we can say that without giving it away.
The final CGI goal. There's a lot of CGI goals.
Yeah, and I mean, the free kick. He takes it from basically the touchline. I mean, you're not shooting from there, right? I don't care who you are.
No.
But regardless, when he runs up to the ball, I think he's running up to the ball like my 2-year-old nephew would run up to a ball. It looks like he's never kicked a ball, and I'm thinking, if you're gonna get somebody who's a reasonably unknown actor, just get one that can play the game. You'll probably find one.
Or just, have a couple of sessions on this is how you strike a football. If they were, presumably they filmed it in the UK, there is a lot. And I mean, a lot of teams and a lot of coaches, even you could have got an academy coach at Newcastle to be like, this is how you hit a free kick. Line it up like that, get your body in this sort of shape. And that'll make this scene. Yeah.
It's probably hard to, I think it's hard to, I think we take for granted, especially in Britain, you could argue probably Europe, that, you become reasonably proficient at football, don't you, from a very young age. Most kids, male and female, are kind of brought up around the ball, right? So, but I don't know anything about that actor. But if you've never kicked a ball ever, to come to it completely fresh and then learn, I suppose, will be quite difficult. But they don't have any difficulty with that in the next film we're talking about.
No, they certainly do not. I guess like the final thing. Is it a Be Reyt or is it a proper shite?
It's proper shite, that, mate. I wouldn't recommend anyone watch it unless you want to. Maybe you have a few beers and you want to laugh or something.
Have a laugh.
Film
I mean, I went in. I'm kind of, the more this conversation's gone on, I'm sort of moving my levels a little bit. But I went with a 3 out of 5. The only reason it's gone up 0.5, because I was going to give it 2.5, is simply because it had Lee Bowyer and James Milner in, and that's
the Leeds United. That's the Leeds United fan in you. Then you're not being objective.
I'm not being objective, and I'm not being a film reviewer. I'm just like, oh, it's got Leeds players in it, yay! Shall we move on to the one that we actually want to talk about then? Yeah.
Let's.
So the Damned United. I put out a little promo image the other day, but obviously Leeds jumped on the merchandise bandwagon when they got promoted. I mean, the date's wrong. It's like 2 days too late. We got promoted quicker than they expected, by the looks of it. But the Damned United, for anyone that doesn't know, is a film that sort of kind of centres around Leeds United, which is quite a big deal for both of us, I guess, in that sense.
Yeah. I don't know. I would probably describe it a little bit differently. Not that I want to disagree with you. I don't think it really does center around. I mean, it involves heavily Leeds United.
Yeah.
But it's really it's just a biopic of Brian Clough, I think.
I mean, 100%.
In the movie, anyway, the book is a little different. It's a little bit more involved with the time at Leeds United.
Maybe didn't word that quite too well. It's not a film about Leeds United, but it has a focus on Leeds United. Obviously, if you want to watch something about Leeds United, there's a couple of really good documentaries on Amazon. But other than that, it's literally a biopic about Brian Clough. So in the time-honoured tradition of Be Reyt or Proper Shite reviews, would you like to try and summarise the plot of this film? Because I imagine that if anyone does check this out, they'll have no idea who Brian Clough is. Like, just what are you talking about?
I'm amazed this film ever got made. I'll be honest, but I'll give him my best shot. Right, blurb for this one: Brian Clough. Think of him as, the best way I could do it is a lot of people will know Jose Mourinho, right? Think of a Mourinho from like 40 years ago, a bit more. So young manager, kind of a really good manager. He achieves great stuff with Derby County. And he, in the wake of Don Revie leaving Leeds United for the England job, Brian Clough steps in, gets the job, and he has kind of a very short, doomed reign as the numero uno at Leeds United. And I think that's really the reason the book was written, because especially at that time, it's quite unusual to go such a short time as manager. And it's really, the film isn't really about football.
No, it's not.
In the purest sense, it's about who Brian Clough was, and a lot. Again, I'm surprised the film was made, because it's not something a lot of people, apart from really enthusiastic football fans like you and me, would be into learning about. Really.
That was spot on. That's perfect. Thank you. That was
really, I'm coming really to this guy's job. I told
you. It's literally, as you said, it's more about Brian Clough than anything else, who was an influential manager from like the mid to late 60s, early 70s, and I guess it touches upon it at the very end of the film. His sort of pinnacle, if you will, is sort of like the late 70s. It's not really in the film. So fans of, unfortunately for Leeds United fans of Leeds United are very much aware of him, even though obviously neither of us were alive at the time. Obviously, Derby County fans obviously will be huge fans, I'd imagine, of Brian Clough. I do have one Derby County friend who I should have probably asked for some sort of interesting quote, but they haven't really got much else to talk about right now. And Nottingham Forest, as well as another huge club of his that he was involved in. This film was, a couple of years after the Goal film. It came out in 2009. Again, I think we'll touch upon this a little bit further into this, but compared to Goal, you wouldn't know if this film came out now, forgetting like what its popularity or if it would even work in terms of the context of the film, like you've said, you probably couldn't tell, other than seeing that Michael Sheen looks very young, that this film came out in 2009, because it's obviously filmed with that sort of like that visual tone, the coloration and everything of it being set in the period it's set. It's very period drama-esque in that sense, that if you watched it now and it came out and it was in the cinema now, you'd be like, oh yeah, it's the period drama that they've done on football from 70s. There's a big difference between that and Goal in terms of how dated and undated these films look.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with that. Yeah, I mean, the Damned United, I don't want to get too kind of film geeky on it, but it's coloured so well. You know, I don't want to dive straight into it, but my favourite scene is the training, the famous kind of landmark scene where Brian Clough's introduced to the first team squad at training, and that whole scene is shot well, but it's coloured so well. It's got like a nice kind of vintage look to it, at the same time as being an obviously modern film. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no.
You're right in saying that if it came out in cinemas now, had it not been released 10 years ago, you wouldn't think it was an old film. It still, it still holds its own like any other film now.
Yeah, no, 100%. That's sort of the unfortunate tragedy of it all, is the way that it's held up. Obviously, as we've already mentioned, we're really aware of this film. Some people won't be. Hopefully, if anyone does check this out, that this podcast, they'll hear what we have to say about it and be like, oh bloody hell, never heard of that. Kind of sounds like an interesting concept. Let's check it out. The sad tragedy of it all is that it had a budget of just $10 million, and yet worldwide it only made 4.1. So this bombed. This flopped hard, even though it is a very beautifully made and well put together film with a really strong cast. But
the cast in this movie is great. Like on paper, if you look at it, but I wonder kind of how much that was expected by the production company, that it would lose money, because I mean, it's like we were texting, as the kids say these days, last night, and I said I can't believe it's like if you made a movie about fishing, because it's not because it's as boring as fishing. Sorry if there are any fishing fans out there, but because it's such a niche subject. It's something that, I mean, my dad would have been interested in, right? Because he knew, but it came out at such a time as Brian Clough was long gone, essentially. From at least I don't know when he died. I think he died after it, but it wasn't active, So it's one of those subjects you kind of think, well, yeah, it's an interesting story. The book was a decent book, but how relevant is it to a film audience? So to me, the fact that it even just lost, it kind of made 50% of its budget back. Even that's kind of surprising to me.
Yeah, no, I kind of get where you're coming from with that one, to be fair. In the world of sort of success or failure in films, it did in a way fail, but it didn't in the sense of for what it is, that it actually, I mean, there was I should have really made a note, but obviously, as I've already mentioned, not a very prepared podcast. Should have made a note. I'm sure he was either Michael Sheen was either nominated or won some awards for his portrayal of Brian Clough in this, because he is, and I've made a very strong note. He's a scene stealer. He just chews up and churns through the scenes. He's just a brilliant method actor. He's fantastic.
This movie. If you're a Michael Sheen fan, if you see him in anything and you think, oh, he's cool, watch this. Even if you watch one YouTube clip of Brian Clough beforehand, because the impression is just, he's kind of like he reminds me. I don't know if you've ever seen The Trip, with Steve Coogan and Rob Brydon. They make a lot of the fact that Steve Coogan and Michael Sheen are often kind of compared because they can both do great. I don't want to say impressions because that cheapens it a bit, but kind of takeoffs of of famous people.
They are really good.
Michael Sheen's really good at doing that. The funny thing is, this is a tangent, but Mrs. Beard, right, Lindsay, she's been watching this atrociously bad TV show called Prodigal Son, which Michael Sheen is also in. And
Oh
I just
yeah, I've
think,
seen this advertised. Yeah,
how did they get him to be in it? Because Michael Sheen is just such a he's just such a great actor. And yeah, in this film, he's oh man, you just watch you're basically watching it for Michael Sheen.
yeah, no, 100%. And I mean, the other sort of standout, and like you mentioned, because it's not really a film about football, it's a film about Brian Clough. The one sort of important relationship in his life, and especially in his career, is that of Peter Taylor. And Timothy Spall is just amazing. Obviously, people will know him from like the Harry Potter franchise. If we've got anyone that's maybe an American that tunes into this who's just like, I don't know who you're talking about. It's the guy who plays Ron Weasley's rat. I forgot what's his name. Voldemort's sort of right hand man. For the life of me, for a guy that's supposed to review films, whenever it comes to actually talking about them on camera or on a microphone, it just leaves my brain.
I'm thinking, yeah, you could probably pick better things for Timothy Spall than Harry Potter. I remember him in a series of unfortunate events, but the movie, not the Netflix.
Yeah. No, I mean he's in a ton of things, and obviously, yeah, Harry Potter's probably not his greatest work, but I think for recognisability for potential people that see this, he is you from this film you get more of what Timothy Spall's about as an actor, because he complements Michael Sheen really well. He's got that sort of like that dark comedic. It's not dark humor in sort of like the vile sense. It's just sort of very sharp in it. It's very witty. It's very
he has it's very British. It's kind of like they have a very kind of north end of England, quite dry sense of humor, which comes across in the foot. It's actually a really funny film if you have this particular sense of humor and you like football and you understand the period. But that's probably why the box office was so poor.
Yeah,
it's asking a lot of its audience. Not many people are gonna, even of our age. I mean, there's no reason for me to be interested in Brian Clough and what happened with Leeds United, 60 years ago. But it is, it's a good film, and it's just for me what makes it actually a great film is the very few standout, because it can be a bit slow in parts.
Yeah.
But there are some really standout scenes which are top class.
Yeah, I mean, before we talk about those scenes, I just think, again, we mentioned it with Goal. I think the one point that it seems to be, or for these two football films at least, the tone setting, other than that, the visual sort of element that I mentioned, with it looking very 60s, 70s, is the like when the film starts, other than the montages that set the tone really well, and the little descriptive sort of sections that sort of break it down, which will be really helpful for people, you should say, for people that don't have a clue what's going on. It really sort of brings you into it. It's like the grim up north, grim Midlands vibe of it's just bucketing it down all the time. It's always really muddy. It's really dark. It's
accurate. It's accurate.
It is really accurate. Yeah, we don't get quite a lot of sunshine in these parts, do we? And it's I really enjoyed it. It just felt like, this is, because it's kind of like you mentioned, it's very subtle, but they have tongue in cheeked it a little bit. We do get days like that where it like belts it down like some sort of monsoon. But it's not super common. It rains, but like every time that there's something in this film like that, it like hams it up to 11. It really adds to tone. It's definitely, I think, partially comedic, even though it's not fully, it's not going for laughs. It's just going for bloody hell, I want to play football in that.
Yeah.
But yeah, the grim up north vibe, we'll call it. I quite liked. And yeah, I guess the other sort of characters in this film was also like Colm Meaney, who's really famous Irish actor.
I always forget that he was in Con Air, right?
Yeah, he's in a lot of quite big films where you just sort of forget it, and then you're like, oh, bloody hell, yeah, he was in that. Yeah. He plays it.
He gets his car taken off, right? John Cusack flies off his car.
Yeah. And he again, like as a Leeds United fan, I have seen interviews with Don Revie. I know what he sounds like. I know his mannerisms. And not only does this film get everyone, they look like the people they're meant to be, with a few exceptions, which we'll mention. Other than that, he just nails it. Again, like obviously this film's mainly Michael Sheen's film, but it's crux. It is like a vendetta film in a way, because it's he's been wronged by Don Revie back in the 60s, and he wants to get back at him. And the whole, whether this is true to life or not, the whole through line of the film is his his take on trying to be one up Don Revie. And obviously for that reason you've got to look at him as an actor as well, and how he plays Don Revie. Even though he's not in as many scenes, he doesn't have as many lines, he's still spot on. Like from a Leeds United fan perspective, I was just like, this really good. Whether his demeanour and mannerisms and how he acted as a person were like that or not, the way that he portrays him in this film is very accurate. Let's put it that way.
Buy it for sure.
Yeah, no, you definitely get it. I'm just trying to see what other notes have I got here. I guess the one big one, I wrote it in capital letters. It's just like, bam. I was like, need to mention it, because if you didn't pick up on it, then there's a problem. Wigs. Just, this film is...
It was the 70s, mate. I mean, nobody has hair like that now, so...
I know. And I wouldn't expect like poor old Liverpudlian Stephen Graham to have to stick, grow his hair out and dye it ginger and curl it a little bit and go for the whole Billy Bremner look, who's ex-Leeds United player. For those who don't know, like one of the most famous Leeds United players, got a little statue of himself outside.
Come on, the most famous,
he's the player that all Leeds-born fans, Leeds sort of born players, all sort of look up to. Like Leeds United's Calvin Phillips that we've got now plays in a very similar sort of role, and he's an idol of his, even though he probably won't have ever grown up seeing him in the flesh. He's got his own statue outside the ground. Billy Bremner is a big deal, but in this film, obviously because it's not really about Leeds United, he doesn't look great. And none of the Leeds players get really that many lines, do they? They're just sort of they're painted as antagonists basically for the whole film.
There's an element of truth there. There's a lot. I think the one thing you got to mention as well with this book is just the sheer that. Like, I mean, even the lawsuits. I think there've been like 3 lawsuits after its release of people suing the people that made the film and the bloke that wrote the book. And I mean, I think nobody comes into a film, even one that's a fictionalized, essentially biopic, thinking it's all true to life. But the kind of acrimony between Brian Clough's theory on like how football should be played and the way Leeds United played back then is that you can't dispute that.
No.
So, I mean, it's there's no reason, I don't think, for the players to. They're not supposed to be characters with dimension. They're supposed to be thugs that kick people around and won games of football by doing it, which might be a bit one-dimensional, but villains often are, So I think I like the fact that I think the footballers are cast well. I like Stephen Graham as Billy Bremner, and as we mentioned before, the one part I did really like is that even though those are all good actors, you forget what's his name, Martin Compston, Steve Arnott from Line of Duty, right? He's in the movie as well. They can all play the game. So the scene that the only thing I wanted to talk about really.
Yeah, go on.
The training scene at the beginning, it's shot in a way which it's a believable training scene. You feel like you've just taken an iPhone out, not an iPhone, right? But you feel like it could be. You've just taken a camera out, a training game in, on a muddy field somewhere. They can all play the game. They're moving the ball around properly. And Michael Sheen everyone knows anyone knows about football and acting probably knows Michael Sheen's actually a decent player as well. So the scene where he turns on that, I'm going to spoil it because I love the scene when he's introduced to all these thugs who they're not supposed to be technically very good footballers. He juggles the ball a few times, turns on it, and then volleys it into the net and says, "Let's see, Don Revie do that." And that's the best part. That kind of sets off the tone of the film. Like, I'm the boss here. I know how to play football properly. You all follow me. So yeah, I love that part.
Yeah, no, it is on my list of notes that I'd put down is the fact that he I don't know if you watched this. There's a show on Sky that's called There's Something About Movies. It's hosted by Alan Carr. And
I've not seen it. No.
Michael Sheen is one of he's the main sort of team captain. There's two teams, and he's like always the guy that's on it, which is really impressive to be fair, considering like you, I don't know whether we've got the wrong impression of him, or maybe it's just that he just likes doing stuff like this. But he's got a really big pedigree, yet he's just happy to just be on sort of anything and just be involved. He's quite happy-go-lucky.
A job's a job, man. A job's a job. Maybe he just needs money.
Maybe. I mean, they mentioned it because I think it was probably by the time this comes out, maybe 2 weeks ago. So for any UK listeners or watchers, go check it out on Sky. If you're not, then probably be a clip on the internet somewhere. But it had Stephen Graham was on the opposition's team, and they were sort of having a bit of banter about. Again, they mentioned the terrible wigs. I can't remember who he compares him to, but he said that he didn't look like Billy Bremner. He looked like so and so, and everyone was like laughing. But he came out. And they pulled the goal out because they do it's very much one of those shows where they go out and do like scenes and they mess about a bit. And basically he goes, all right, you can have an extra point if you can do that, because I don't think you can do that. I reckon that there was either a stunt man or you had about 30 takes. And Michael Sheen gets really, really pent up about it. It's like, oh, actually, it only took 3 scenes. I just sort of did it, and 3 takes, and it was done. And you can't really tell whether he's joking or he does it. And he actually still in the actual studio from one take, doesn't score. He punts it at a cameraman, which might have been on purpose. But he does the headers, the knees up, the kick ups, and then volleys it. And he's wearing a full sort of suit or jeans. It's something really awkward to be able to do that. He is a good footballer. He genuinely is good. Did
he do a soccer aid? Maybe not this year, but last year.
He's done it before. Yeah, he has. He's done it before. I
mean, they invite anyone on that thing, man. I'm trying to get on that next year. They had that guy. What's that other YouTube guy? I forget the guy. He missed the penalty so badly.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
Just get me on that show, man. I'm just gonna go through flipping. What's his name? Robbie Williams or that Johnny Wilkes or whatever.
Smash Ollie Murs.
Oh yeah, man. Just nutmeg him a few times and a few cheeky elbows in the face. I'm joking.
Get some tips from this film, yeah. I'm trying to think what else we can really talk about. I did find it really funny. In British sort of football humour, I guess. The good old magic sponge, magic bucket, and the fact that there's just no stretchers in this period. So it's I think it's the first game that they play where where the vendetta kind of starts, I guess, where he realizes that he's been ignored by him. He's not going to acknowledge him. They're in a division below him because it's like an FA Cup game. But they take out one of the Derby players, and the guy just runs on with a little bucket. Rubs his knee and then hoists him off. It's probably caused further injury, but obviously it's different times. But it's really funny, stuff like that. When you watch it now, you're just they've captured it really well, because that will have been how it'll have been. It's just isn't it?
Sure. Games. I don't want to sound like an old man, but even I've been allowed the games changed a lot. I remember there's a scene in the Damned United where I think it does a close up on the goalkeeper. He's not even wearing gloves, and you think, good lord, I wouldn't want to be trying the balls they used to play with back then as well, like rocks, man. I wouldn't want to be trying to catch one of those without any gloves on in the mud as well. It's a wonder all the games weren't 15-12 or something like that.
Yeah, in the days when shorts really really were short as well, the sort of the. Trying to think of the correct word. The wardrobe, I guess, for this film is very, very as well.
You know what I wanted to mention as well is the most surprising part of that movie, or one of, is how good was Kevin Keegan's physique. When it's the scene when there's a part where Keegan's I forget who
Bremner, him and Bremner have a.
Bremner gives him the right hook or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But then they get sent off, right, and Keegan takes his shirt off, and I'm like,
Jesus. Yeah.
This is before they even knew how to weight train properly and stuff. I'm like, wow.
This is in an era where Brian Clough turns up, and this is completely true. He turns up. They're on the training pitch that used to be next to Elland Road, and they're all just having a fag break mid-training. This is that era. This is the era where physique, sports nutrition, all those things.
Wasn't football better then though? I love football. I can't even. I can watch it now. I still watch it, but I enjoy football more from like the 80s and 90s and stuff like that. Maybe not the 80s because I was a kid, but I mean it was better back then. You have like a cigarette at half time, few beers at night time. It's not all about pace and technical ability. It's all about just playing the game.
It was just pure spectacle.
I'm old now. Yeah.
Well, I don't remember the 80s. Let's put it that
way.
Yeah. I guess. Sort of going with that theme as well. Like, obviously, this is a film podcast. You're a Leeds fan. You're a Leeds fan, I guess. I'm definitely a Leeds United fan, if you couldn't tell already. So even though they are villainous in this film, and people can have their own opinions as to whether they could play football or not, I'm a firm believer that there were some very gifted players. Eddie Gray, for example, Peter Lorimer, apparently still looked at as some of the best wingers in the game from that sort of period. The scene where they're walking up to Derby's ground for the FA Cup, the fact that they even, from a Leeds fan perspective, they put Don Reevy's dossiers are mentioned in it, the superstitions, and the fact that the way that they are on the pitch with the clapping and the turning round, like people will watch it and think, oh, maybe that's just done because it's a 70s film. They're trying to give that vibe. These are all real things that Don Revie brought in to change the culture of Leeds United before he joined. He turned them into superstars. Basically, these are like the sports rock stars that of the time. Like when they're walking to the ground, all the people are running at them. You obviously wouldn't get that. Now, you do get people that queue next to the barriers when they come off of the bus trying to get a high five or a picture or whatever when players turn up now, but they usually all got their headphones on, they walk straight in, little smile and walk in. Back then, this film captures Leeds in that particular era, at least, as being exactly how I've been brought up to be told what they're like, and for me, that just added to it.
Yeah. I mean, it catches football, and I mean, it kind of delves into that because you got Jim Broadbent, right, as I forget the guy's name, director, chairman,
Uncle Sam at Derby. Yeah.
He kind of catches it in that probably its period of biggest transition from the late 70s coming into the early 80s when more of the game's dictated by money, and it kind of covers that a little bit when Brian Clough just starts buying players without consulting the boss, which I like. Yeah, I think it does a lot to kind of, if you're really into football, like you're a bit of a football nerd and you're into your football history and stuff, it does a really good job of showing you what the late 70s and stuff were or 70s, late 70s were about in terms of how football's changing. And they weren't all like they are now, right? You'd see them in the local pub or whatever. Some of them even had other jobs that they were doing. I think he even says that it's something like you can't pay a footballer 300 quid a month or something like that.
Yeah.
Admittedly,
it's a week, I think. I think at the time it's like 300 quid a week that he says. Yeah, in that line.
And that's a lot of money. And like, what are they earning now? Like, I don't know, 300,000 quid a week. So.
Yeah, it's insane. I did have. I'm glad you actually brought up Jim Broadbent. Jim Broadbent is another firm favourite of mine for like British staple films, where he appears, and again, he's another person that just sort of like whenever he's on, he just commands the scene like really well, because he's either really funny, really harsh, or again, like you made with the mention of Timothy Spall, is just really British. And in that one, that line when it's so northern, even though I don't know whether he was from Derby, it's obviously Midlands, it's still, debate whether you class it as north or south, who knows, but I don't know where the actual character was from. He says that it's his hometown club. But either way, that's still kind of how people up north are now. Like, how much? Well, spending that. It's a very, it just captures everything so well.
It's it's got a lot of really good one-liners in as well that you kind of, if you're into like, again, if you're into film, you can really enjoy this one. I love the part where Brian Clough's in the he does an interview at the start before he officially joins Leeds United, right? And he goes into the boardroom because he said some things he probably shouldn't have, and they say, we like you, Brian. We think you're the best young manager in the country. And he says, yeah, I'm the best old one too. And I like the one where he says he's on the I think it's on Parkinson, right? Which doesn't exist now, but it's a chat show, our version of Letterman. And he says, yeah, how good are you as a manager? And Brian Clough says, well, I wouldn't say I'm the best manager, but I'm in the top one. And all these kind of things, which really, that's how Brian Clough was. So it's accurate, but it's funny as well. So.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, if you, like I was going to say, if you compare any interviews that are shown in this, they've clearly recreated footage that was available either the BBC archives or the ITV archives or however they've got hold of them. Some of them probably are on YouTube, and you probably could watch them side by side, and you just get the same.
I'm thinking of the part it just came back to me now. The scene with Muhammad Ali as well. That's in fact that gives you a good idea of how big a deal Brian Clough was at the time.
Yeah,
because Brian Clough's so outspoken. Everyone knows Muhammad Ali, right? And there's a famous scene where I can't remember what show Muhammad Ali's on at the time, but he says, I hear about this guy called Brian Clough. He's always talking. Clough, I've had enough. And then there's Michael Sheen playing Brian Clough, watching that clip, and say, well, are you going to stop then, Brian? He says, no, I'm going to fight him.
Yeah.
And, it's stuff like that that really makes an endearing film.
Yeah, no, I think that they could have done this film without putting that scene in, but that scene is definitely put in there for the worldwide audience to just realise this guy was a big deal and things did go very wrong in this. What this film's trying to show is where it messed up. And it does it so well by just it's only like a couple of seconds in. It's a very small clip in it, and it's just through it. But that for anyone that's never heard of any, you listen to this podcast, this is all news to you now. But that, if anything that we've said, you're just like, oh, they're just saying it because the football fans. That gives you an idea as to how important or how big a deal this guy was at the time. So yeah, 100%. It's a great scene, a really good joke as well.
I was wondering as well, watching the film at the end, I was thinking, I wonder if they could ever do like a movie like this about like Mourinho at Man United or something like that,
Yeah.
You ever think that?
Yeah, maybe.
I would watch it, I'd love to watch it, because there aren't that many good sports movies, let's put it that way, especially football ones. We said that at the beginning.
Yeah.
I'd watch something like that, because you don't really get to see a lot of the behind the scenes stuff and what the people psychologically go through. I'd watch like a Wenger documentary. I need to buy his book, actually. I'm an Arsenal fan. I've not bought the book yet.
Yeah, I agree. There is literally like so many scenarios in modern football now that maybe, in 10, 15, 20 years time, they could definitely. I mean, one that I would revel as a Leeds United fan in the chance of just being able to watch, enjoy and laugh my head off would be Ole Gunnar Solskjaer sort of biopic film about how he's absolutely dismantled Manchester United. That would be a car crash.
United fans, you need to let that go, man. Like I don't get it. What's the thing with Man United? It's not even like, I think that's like a 30-year-old longer 40, 50-year-old rivalry. You just need to let it pass.
War of the Roses, man. It's deep ingrained in its DNA. I'm surprised it's not slowly sort of like nudging at you, even though, you're from this neck of the woods.
Oh man, don't get me wrong. I don't like seeing Man United do well, but I don't have this obsession with them doing it. To me, it's funny to see them fall apart. From being such an unshakable force in football. But I tell you what would work as a film if they did it well. I could see it turning out to be a bit goal-esque if they did it. But Jamie Vardy's career. That would be a good one.
That would be another good one. I should have. This is great. I need to get you on more often because literally, we should have just done a section of scenarios that could make really good football films to solve this weird football problem, this film football problem that we've got. Maybe we could do that next time.
I think the Jamie Vardy thing will definitely happen if, and it's a big if. Let's say Euro 21 happens, right? It's not Euro 20 now.
Yeah.
Euro 21 happens. Gareth Southgate picks up the phone and says, Jamie, Harry Kane's crocked or whatever. You come out of international retirement, then we get to the final. Vardy scores the winner. You can bet your bottom dollar all the Hollywood producers will be like, yeah, let's do this. That's a script from non-league right up to the World Cup final.
Yeah,
I can see it.
Yeah, because of the reasons I've got you on here, I'm just going to wheel it back to talking about me and Leeds United. But I still lament the day that when we had good old Ken Bates, one of the old chairmen of Leeds United, who, let's just put it for people that probably have no idea what I'm saying, he didn't like to spend any money, and we weren't particularly doing too well. We had the opportunity to sign Jamie Vardy for a very, very, very small sum, but that was still too much apparently. And now look at him. Look what could have been.
Yeah. Well, I mean, back in the Premier League now, you can't complain.
Yeah,
You've got Paddy B, super fast Bam Bamford.
Where is he? Hang on.
I'd be surprised. There's nobody listening to this podcast anymore, man. Like, we've gone too much into the sports angle.
Hey up, you're still here. If you enjoyed that, don't forget to search for us on your favourite podcast provider for the full episode and to give us a follow for more. What did you think to goal in the Damned United? Let us know in the comments down below, and don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell for all the latest from us here on the channel. But until next time, City in a bit.